Hello, and welcome to episode 11 of the Path of Maximum Resistance. I'm Steve. I think today what I'd like to talk to you about, actually, it's not what I think. I'm actually really excited about this. I would have recorded this last night if my puppy would have let me. She was just way too hyper, so I couldn't divert her attention so I could get to filming this. But I am really excited to share it because hopefully I think it's something that can be helpful for other people, and I'm finding that helping other people is something that's super fulfilling. So in all other episodes, if I'm just kind of sharing about myself, that delivers some pleasure to me. Obviously, I like doing it. That's why I'm doing it. But knowing that this episode might have some solutions for people struggling, gives me extra special feeling, I guess. So I know not a ton of people watch these, but if it gets to the people that need it and it can be a solution to what ails them, man, that's an awesome thing. So I'm really excited. So that kind of segues into what the topic is about today. And to kind of introduce that, I need to tell you that in the past, if you've watched any of these episodes, earlier I had talked about some of the things that I've personally struggled with, mostly like PTSD resulting from my combat experience, which on top of, I think I actually, in full disclosure, I think like I have some inherent sort of emotional, not like disabilities or conditions or anything, but I sometimes, I guess my point is I sometimes always, any issue I have, I try to contribute or attribute to PTSD and like my combat experience. But I really think the case is that there was something there prior to that, and that combat just exacerbated what was previously there. But whatever, it doesn't really matter what the case might be or what the cause is. Today I want to talk about some solutions because as it currently stands, I'm actually in a really good spot. I feel really emotionally happy. I feel really mentally clear. I feel physically in great shape. Just a lot of really good things. About the only thing where I'm in a negative stance, obviously, is my employment status. But at some point, you realize in life, employment isn't everything, and that's something we'll kind of talk about as we go along here. But there are certain things that I found through the course of my struggles that have helped me, and I hope to share them now, or not hope, I'm going to share them now. I hope that they're helpful for other people. And that's the point of this episode, is to share the things that I found to be solutions, or even if they're only temporary, but things that have brought me some, basically like a remedy to the different things that have bothered me in the past. And to just give you an idea, so in case you haven't watched the past episodes, some of the things that I've dealt with, obviously I've talked plenty, like I said, if you haven't watched, you don't know this, but I talk very often about alcoholism because for a very long time, drinking was like my everything. And that's something I think about, like anything that has an addictive quality, anything that's like mind altering, I tend to really like. So if I do it a few times, I'll end up doing it a lot, which in and of itself, I don't think is a huge problem. It's just personally for me, what ends up happening is that I make it like the predominant thing in my life. Like if I start drinking, all I'll want to do is drink all the time. So anyway, I'm not going to sort of digress into that. What I'm going to do is kind of talk about how to overcome that. But I do want to drive home how real it is, and I think something I haven't actually revealed before, and I think this might be kind of startling for some of you, but it kind of hit me this morning. I've never shared this, and I want to, just because I want you to know not just what PTSD feels like. That's not really the point. But I want people who are struggling with PTSD to know legitimately, I know what you're talking about. Let me give you an example. And this is the part I don't think people who are close to me know about. But there's days, and it's not very often, but the fact that it's happened at all is a problem. There's days I've woke up, and I go to the gym every day, no matter what, no matter the conditions. I never skip a gym day, or at least I go running. It's just something about me. It's like breathing. I have to do it. But there's days I go to the gym, I come home, and I'll kind of think about life, and then I'll just go back to bed. There's been days that I have literally just come home from the gym, laid in bed, not like flipped through my phone, not like looked at social media, not done all that stuff, just went back to sleep and slept all day. Just overcome with basically depression. And like I'll on those days, it's everything. I'll think about the world, like the condition of politics right now, and like just the sort of selfishness of the world and the hatred and the violence and stuff like that, and that'll get really dark, and then I'll bring it into my own personal situation, and like if things aren't going perfectly for me, it all kind of snowballs, and I'll just like it becomes exhausting, and I'll literally just get super tired. And so I'll just sleep. Like, I'll literally come home, like, I'll think I'm taking a nap, like, say, like, this has happened. Like, it'll be like 11 o'clock, I'll go to take a nap, I'll wake up at like 4, and then I'll kind of like look around, take my dog out, and then just go right back to bed. It's pretty awful when those days happen. I mean, when those days happen, I'm just sleeping, so it's not the worst thing. But looking back, like, that I have any days like that, because we only have a finite amount of days in these lives of ours, so that any days are wasted to anything like that is just, I mean, it's abysmal. It's just, it can't happen. We need to eliminate situations like that. And so that's what I'm trying to talk about today, is how to avoid those things. And I think I have some techniques that hopefully, well, I know they've been helpful for me, so hopefully they'll be helpful for other people who are watching, who are dealing with the same thing. And again, I'm not like a medical doctor by any means. These are just sort of anecdotal things that I've experienced that have been helpful for me. And again, it's just a matter of, hey, I hope to share and be helpful and beneficial to other people. So, the very biggest thing, let me take a break here real quick so we can get started. So pause, everyone calm down. Just kidding, here we go. All right. So the biggest thing I've noticed, or the most helpful thing that you can do, or I have done, that's like a practical thing. Because some things that you can do are sort of, I don't want to say esoteric, but they're not tangible. But there is one thing I've noticed that you can do that is very much pragmatic. That's a very practical thing that is enormously helpful, and it seems common sense. And when I say it, it seems very obvious, but it's a matter of doing it. And once you do it, you'll think to yourself, well, whatever. But once you do it, I'm telling you, it cascades, and you'll see results from it. And that is being productive. And what do I mean by that? Well, productivity, I think, means something different to everyone. And all I'm saying is, if you are battling with depression or PTSD or alcoholism or whatever the case might be, the blues, anything that just is sort of synonymous in that category of feelings, I found just being productive is super helpful. And I've also found that productivity begets productivity. So again, productivity is different to everyone. And productivity, in some sense, can be as easy as just committing yourself to leaving the house. For me, that's a huge deal. If I just, like, say, for example, so, I will digress in this sense. I'll give you a little anecdotal story that will hopefully drive this home, and it will kind of show you how I've used productivity to help myself. So very recently, since I left the job that I found wasn't a very good fit for me not too long ago, as some of you have been following along might know about, might be aware of, there was a brief period where I got pretty depressed about it. Like, it sucked because I thought that was kind of like my dream job, and I was really happy, and it was high paying, and it was doing the things that I wanted to do. And unfortunately, it just wasn't a good fit for me personally, so I ended up leaving the job. And I thought I was okay with it. But then within a couple of days after leaving it, I found that I wasn't. And, well, I didn't know it. I guess I didn't, like, directly, explicitly know how badly it affected me. But soon after leaving, I found that I was falling into some bad habits. For one, I started smoking weed again. Which, again, I don't think smoking weed in and of itself is a bad thing. Honestly, I don't. It's just in my case, like, I think I can do it for, like, before I go to bed, just to unwind, I'll do it, and then I'll be fine. And then within, like, 5 days, I wake up, and I'm just, like, wake and baking. And that becomes a problem because it totally zaps my motivation. And when I'm talking about being productive, it's kind of like the antithesis of that. It's like the whole opposite is the effect it has on me. So it's not so much I'm trying to avoid it, it's something that I have to be very cognizant of managing. And right now, especially trying to find a job and stuff, it's something I guess I can say I am avoiding right now because practically speaking, it's something I just can't have in my system. But and plus, like, I'm trying to be very productive, and so let me bring you to that. So to get out of that sort of haze, and I didn't mean to do this purposely, and this is kind of where I did this. I didn't tactically do this. It just kind of happened, and then the results of it, the positive results of it, is what made me find that it's a good method for overcoming the thing that was bothering me, and that's what kind of drove me to this video of wanting to share it, is that I just got out of the house. Like, for example, like, I would go to, say, like I'd go out hiking, or I would go to, like, a farmer's market, or I have this fascination for bookstores. I like to gather a whole bunch of books, especially at like a Barnes and Nobles where there's a coffee shop that you can sit in and you can bring like unpurchased material in with you. I'll collect a bunch of magazines and books and stuff, and I'll bring my computer and I'll work on some like coding and everything. And when I need a break, I'll divert my attention to a book that I brought with me or I had gathered from the bookstore. But just being in the bookstore and being out of the house, I found there's just something about it that is invigorating. Even if you don't necessarily communicate, just seeing other people, just being in a different environment, there's something positive about that. And what I found is that I do that one day, well then the next day I want to do something else. Like the next day suddenly I'm going to even like a shopping mall, I'm walking around or going and watching a sunset or something ridiculous. But that first step of, actually getting out of the house will sort of, or at least it has in my case, it's sort of caused me to want to do it the next day. And just the fact that my time is preoccupied keeps me from doing, the things that I'm trying to avoid, like say in this case, smoking weed. If I don't bring it with me, obviously I can't do it. And therefore that just on like a practical level makes sense, or is helpful. And continuing on that, when I say, productivity, so that's an example of productivity, is just getting out of the house. And of course it's not the only example of productivity. For me, like coding, when coding starts to feel like work, maybe sometimes I start avoiding it. And then to get back into it though, it's the weirdest thing. It's just making that first step. So like I've noticed that so on the days that coding starts to feel like work, once I start getting into it and I produce something, it gives me this really fulfilling feeling and I'll want to keep doing it, and it stops feeling like work. So again, that's productivity, whatever it is. Like if your thing is drawing or painting or singing or mixing music or producing music or exercising, you just have to make that first step to doing it. And I find that that's so exponentially helpful in ways that you wouldn't expect. Like I'm telling you, it seems so common sense and so obvious, but you just have to do it, or at least it's been helpful for me. And I'm trying to convey to you that if you do have like a disposition that's similar to mine, you might also find that it's helpful as well. And it's just a matter of going out and doing it. And I know that all seems very simple, and I feel like I'm saying this and you're thinking that just being productive isn't going to bring like a wealth of results of benefit, but it really does. Like it really, really does. And then it just keeps building like every day. And then suddenly you find that, the next day you have more energy and you're more like invigorated to do something else. And like it just keeps piling up till you're doing bigger and bigger things. And then suddenly you're like, I want to make a video today and put it on the internet. So yeah, it just kind of builds up. It's progressive. So that's my first thing is be productive. Like find something and then just do it, whatever it is. Even if it's the smallest thing, you have to figure out what that productivity is for you in your life. Like what's a step for you. Like some people are more farther along, so they can take bigger steps. Like maybe their example of being productive is doing something super significant, just because that's where they're at in life. Whereas being productive for someone else might just be making the bed in the morning. But whatever it is, you got to do it. I truly, truly believe in that, and I believe in it because it's worked for me. And it's not just that I've seen it recently with the example I just shared. It's happened over and over and over, enough times now that I'm just like, it's so obvious. Like once I start finding myself sort of going down that hill, I know I just need to be productive, get out of the house, go do something, complete the project, and then it sort of puts me in the right frame of mind. So that's the first thing is being productive. I find that to be super helpful. And that kind of segues into another notion, another sort of philosophical thought I've had. And I was kind of just saying how things kind of cascade or are progressive and they kind of build on each other. That's true in either case. So like good or bad, I find that so if you're doing bad things, they beget bad things. If you're doing good things, they beget good things. And I have found this to be true throughout life. Like, I'm not a religious person. I'm not a spiritual person per se. I oddly have my degree in religious studies, but I approach it from an academic, educational standpoint. Point being, I guess, it's not something that's near and dear in my life, but I have like this sort of philosophical belief that when you do good things, the world returns good things back to you. But that's not like a religious belief. It's something I've experienced. I've noticed that I may have, if you have watched these episodes, I've shared that I like never lie, which is now that's a lie itself, because I have recently, when I was going through my little down period, and this will kind of be an example of what I'm saying, I noticed myself starting to revert to little white lies. And when I was in a really good spot, I never had to lie. And it's interesting how your mental sort of composition or your outlook kind of changes. So when you're in a really good spot, you have the confidence to never have to lie. So, okay, let me give you an example. When I'm in a really good place, like where I'm at right now, if someone were to ask me, hey, let's go do something today, and I didn't feel like doing it, I have the confidence to say to them, I just don't feel like doing it. No. But when I'm in a bad place, I find that if someone were to ask me, let's go do something, and I don't want to do it, I would make an excuse. I would lie to them. And that's an example of how it cascades. So all of a sudden, okay, you're in a bad spot. Now you're telling lies. Now that leads you to be like, oh man, no, I'm just going to sit and maybe I'll have that drink tonight, or I'll do something. And suddenly, like a week later, you don't notice these little baby steps kind of piling up, but they are. And progressively, all of a sudden you look and you're in a really bad spot. So I do think one of the keys, along with productivity, is avoiding like the little small negative things. And when I kind of started this segment of what I'm talking about, I looked at it from a religious aspect. That's because I truly believe that when I try to be a good person and I don't lie, and I'm very positive, and I'm really trying to like help people for the right reasons, things work out in my favor. So I don't know if that's karma or what it might be. That's why I kind of alluded to the religious aspect of it. But I do think there's some practical, almost not scientific, but I think there's like a pragmatic way of looking at that makes sense. So consider this. If you're a good, honest, positive person, good things are probably going to happen to you, not because of some weird karma, spiritual composition of the universe. It's because people want to help those type of people. Like, if you're a good person and you're helpful to other people, say you do a favor for someone, it's not magical that someone else who saw you do that favor might then go, hey, I'll help that person out when they're having an issue. None of that is like magic or like some deep secret or some like, illusion mystery that I'm revealing to you. I think it's a pretty common sense thing. So again, like, you have to start embracing those little small steps. And for me, like I said, the really small step that begets really awesome results is not lying. And by not lying, it forces me to be obviously an honest person, which in some sense makes me a good person. And then and that's the other thing, is when you don't tell even little white lies, it forces you to sort of embrace the world's realities, because you can't lie yourself out of them. So like in every situation, if you really commit to not lying, you start to see the world in a different way. Like, if someone asks you to do something, you don't want to do it, you have that. Or say you're in a situation where you just can't help, it makes you embrace and sort of encounter and overcome the obstacles instead of lying your way out of them. When you lie, you sort of avoid the challenge, avoid the obstacle, and then there's no learning. There's no development from it. All you did is you just lied your way out of it. If you actually have to tell the truth, it forces you to embrace. Because when you tell the truth, you then have to think about, okay, well, why am I telling this person? Sometimes you'll find that I have noticed this to be true, and I swear this is the case. There's been times where lying is just too convenient of a thing. And it makes you, it actually influences your behavior. And you'll find that it'll influence your behavior in weird ways, in ways that you wouldn't even want it to. Like, consider, someone might ask me to go do something, and I might actually want to do it, but because lying is so easy, I might just say, no, I have something going on. And then I'll be like, but I really kind of wanted to do that. Like, why did I even go down that path? So if you're honest, and you take that second, it forces you to think about the question that someone's asking you, and you might find, actually, I want to do that. Like, someone might ask you, hey, let's do something today, and you might be apt to just lie your way out of having to do that because you feel like it's an obligation. But when you're committed to the truth, it makes you step in before you just jump straight into that lie and work your way around doing whatever that thing is. you just go and you go, hold on a second. Whoa, I actually do want to do that. And then you go, well, you know what? Okay, let's do it. And you find out that whatever it was, and then you end up doing it, and then that leads to the step one I talked about at the very beginning. That's productivity. All of a sudden, now you're doing something. You're being active, and you find that those two aspects go hand in hand. So being truthful, a good person, sort of makes you more active and productive almost inherently by its nature. And on top of that, so then you'll become more productive and more active. And it's just avoiding those little baby steps, because that's the real kicker. And here's where it gets me. Like, I'm telling you all this stuff, so you'd be like, well, Steve, you haven't figured it out, so things must be great for you. And they are at the moment. But here's the thing, is once things start going really well, you might give in to what... So when you're in a bad spot, every little change you can make seems super significant, right? But when you're in a good spot, those same changes that did seem significant now seem insignificant. So think about this. So when your world is upside down and you're telling yourself you're going to change, and you say, I'm not going to lie anymore, every lie you say, it seems like a huge deal. But when you're on top of the world, a little white lie seems like nothing, right? But that's what happens. All of a sudden, you're on top of the world, you tell that little white lie, next thing you know, you're telling a little bigger lie. And then you're using your lies to avoid the things that people are asking you to do. And now you're not being productive anymore. And then you're going back down that hill. It's almost so obvious. It's like I'm sitting here telling you things that are just super plain to see. And you know what? I think to a lot of people, I think to a good portion of the population, this stuff is common sense. And those are the people who don't struggle. But those of us who do have PTSD, or we are prone to depression, or whatever the case might be, these are the common sense things that aren't clear to us, that if like a gentle reminder like I'm trying to give right now, it tends to be really helpful. And like, I have to give myself these same reminders, and maybe this is one of the reasons I'm doing this video, is because I'll always be able to remember, man, I went out there and I went on camera telling people these things, advocating these things, and I'm not even practicing them myself. And I can use that as my motivation to do the right thing. Now, I want to keep talking about some practical things that are helpful. I've also found, so I told you that everything in my life right now, really, and I honestly mean this, like I'm not saying this to put on a show, like I'm really happy, I'm in a really good spot. Of course, my employment situation isn't what I want it to be, and that does suck, but here's another sort of paradoxical thing that's happened, is that, so my passion right now is for coding. I really like to code. I've told you that in my life, the only things that have really been consistent that have brought me a ton of pleasure is working out and music. Those are the two things that I just absolutely adore and have throughout my life. And coding, as of the last couple of years, has joined those two things as being like the third thing that really, really brings me great fulfillment. I like the intellectual stimulation of coding. I like finding new technologies and like trying to master them. I think that's all so fun and stimulating. But because of my employment situation, I found for a period there that I was starting to turn code into work. And of course, in a lot of sense, coding is work. And when it's your job, that's in fact what it is. And then my passion for it would go away, and I would start avoiding it. Like, I'd wake up and I'd be like, oh man, I gotta learn a technology today because I have to become, proficient so I can look good for employers. And then suddenly I didn't want to do it. And that's a bad place to be in. And this actually happened. So there was a couple days where I took a couple days off from coding, not purposely, I just didn't want to do it. I was like, forget this. I'll go and get a job serving tables, whatever. So I kind of avoided coding. And here's the weird thing that happened is when I avoided coding, suddenly, like I found, so I'll actually give you the exact example of what happened. I won't tell you like in an analogy or use a metaphor. I'm actually going to tell you what happened. So I avoided coding. I wasn't doing it, and then just randomly, I happened to come across this new technology that I was like, oh, that looks interesting. I was like, let me read about it. I started reading about it, and I wasn't thinking of it in the context of trying to learn it for a work purpose. I was just reading about it, and I was like, oh, this technology actually looks pretty like learning it and mastering it seems attainable. Let me try it. Next thing I know, I started working with it. Not for any practical purpose, I was just having fun. And then suddenly I was up all night coding a new website, like using that new technology. So I guess my point is when you don't think of things in like their financial sense, and you don't let everything be guided by money, you might find that your passions for things come back. And in an analogy, here's where I will use an analogy, and this came to mind last night because I was talking to one of my buddies that I watch basketball with here in Long Beach. We were talking about basketball, and he's having it's funny, his struggles at his job they sound exactly like mine that I had when I was working at the Federal Aviation Administration that ultimately led to me leaving. And so we were talking about like, dissatisfaction with work and whatnot. And then I was kind of conveying this same philosophical sentiment to him, and in the context that we were talking about basketball because we like it, and it made me think that no matter how much you like something, you can really lose interest in it quick if you think of it only as work. So in the comparable to basketball is that if you're an NBA player and you love basketball, it's what you've done your whole life, well, even NBA players get tired of basketball when they think of it as a job. But I bet you when they go and play pickup ball and they're not thinking about like how to become good at basketball so they can maintain their paycheck, suddenly, like, I bet you the enjoyment of it reveals itself back to them. And so that's one of the things. Like, I know sometimes it's not possible to treat everything like we have obligations in life, right? So, like, sometimes you have to do work. You just have to, like, coding has to become a job for me at some point. But again, like, when you're starting to struggle, I think maybe an exercise to conduct is to just sort of step back and just really kind of, even if you have to take a break from whatever it is, you might find that the thing that draws you back to it isn't the growing proficient in it for a monetary reason, but because it is something you might remember why it brought you so much enjoyment. Because I'm telling you, the other night when I was coding all night, like, that reminded me of being back when I was in like junior high and I first like saw the internet or first like started making my own web pages. I used to be up all night and it was just so fascinating. And I hadn't had that feeling forever. And then just a couple nights ago, I had it again. And I was like, this is awesome. And even now, like, I'm excited to go coding again. I'm excited, like, what's the next technology? Now that I had that success, again, productivity begetting productivity. So I had success with one technology. Now suddenly I'm like, oh, I'll take on the next technology. And it builds confidence in yourself. Once you know that you can do something, you want to take on the next thing that's more complex. So again, all of this stuff cascades. And if you notice, and I didn't really think about this before I started talking, but all of these things, they all make like a pattern and a theme. It's like thinking about coding, we have what we call a linked list, where it's a data type where basically one node leads to another node leads to another node. And that's the case in life. Like all of these different things I'm talking about that are practical techniques for overcoming the things bothering you, if you really think about them, they all sort of work together. It's kind of like your linked list. Productivity or being a good person leads you to productivity. Productivity leads you to confidence, which leads to more productivity, which leads you to not wanting to lie anymore. It all sort of just boom, 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 boom. Yeah. Oh, so really, I'm actually racing through this pretty quickly, which is good for all you, so you don't have to listen to another, hour and a half long podcast of me just blabbering on here. But one thing I did want to mention, I was looking down at my notes here, and it's really the last thing I have on here, is, and I'm not sure if this is a technique that I can advocate, or I want to advocate for people, because I think it might be sort of specific to my own mindset, but when it comes to overcoming addiction and stuff like that, something that I've found, and I shouldn't say like I found this to be a working technique, because it's not what I intended, it's just the way it worked out for me. And I'm just going to share it. I'm going to throw it out there. If it works for you, great. And if you think it wouldn't work, then just totally forget I said it. But when it comes to addictions, I don't quit them. Let me tell you. So I haven't drank in like 3 years probably. And I never quit drinking. And I can give you another example. I used to dip tobacco, especially when I was in the military. I used to dip all the time, like all the time. And both in drinking and in dipping, I never quit them. I actually remember, I haven't dipped in like a decade, but I remember the very last time I dipped, I didn't quit. I remember this specifically. I took my last dip out of the tin, and I was just like, man, I don't feel like spending any more money on dip, so I'm not going to go get it. And since then, I haven't dipped. I've never quit. I just haven't felt like spending money on dipping again. And I think about the cost-benefit analysis of dipping. and the benefit doesn't overcome how much it costs for that habit, so I don't do it. But I never really quit it. Like, if I were to dip again, it wouldn't like destroy my mental makeup. If I were to dip, I wouldn't be like, oh, I broke that abstinence I had accumulated for so long. It's not that. Drinking is the same case. I swear to you, though drinking was a huge problem and I wanted to quit, I never actually quit it. In fact, I don't even remember the last time. Well, I remember the last significant time I drank, just because it was such a big deal, and I told the story on here. It's when I was passed out on Sunset Strip. But I may have drank after that. I don't really remember, because the last drink wasn't a monumental thing to me. Like, I didn't drink and go, now I'm done. I just stopped. And that's the thing. Like, I don't have any pressure on myself about drinking, because if I want to drink, I feel like, okay, I'll go and do it. Because I don't look at it from the perspective of I quit. I just, I guess maybe because financials and money issues are so big to me that I personally can kind of evaluate things in a cost-benefit analysis. And when I think about drinking, and I think about how much money in my past I've spent on drinking, I can't fathom wasting that money and putting myself in the financial situation I've been in the past. So, like, as much enjoyment as I might get from drinking, it's just not worth it financially for me. But I do think about that. Like, I think, like, if I were to become super successful, hit the lottery or whatever, I'd probably drink again. But I think I would have the tools to manage it. But again, I know every alcoholic says that, right? But I guess that's how it's worked for me. Is I just kind of I don't desire to drink. Like, once I stopped doing it, it wasn't because I quit. I was just like, man, I don't feel like spending this money anymore. And then now I feel so healthy, and if I add up all the benefits, I feel like I'm in great shape. Like, I don't know, I'm getting a little bit older, and I feel like physically, like, yeah, I'm in pretty good shape. Mentally, like, my mental acuity, I feel like I'm just on top of the world. I feel super clear. Like, coding, I feel like I can do because I have that mental acuity that might not be there if it was clouded from alcohol. And my confidence when I'm not drinking, everything feels so good. So when I compare all of those things to the couple of hours of enjoyment I might get from drinking, it just doesn't seem worth it. So that's how I sort of stopped drinking. I didn't quit doing it. I just lost the desire because I found not doing it so much more beneficial, and like the positive. So if you have something that's really enjoyable and you have something else and you're comparing the two, and everything else is equal, why wouldn't you do the thing that's more enjoyable? So all of the benefits, all of the enjoyable and pleasurable benefits of not drinking are so much greater than the tangible, fleeting benefit of drinking, that it's a no-brainer for me at this point. And again, that might change it sometime in the future, and if it is, I'm not going to beat myself up about it. But that's how I've done it. I've never sat and said, now I quit. And I find, and I should kind of give you the converse of that, is that when I do, like with weed, if I say to myself, I need to stop smoking weed, I need to quit smoking weed, I guarantee you if I say that night I'll smoke weed. Like, that's the case. But when I say, if I don't even think about it, if I just start coding, I get out of the house, I be productive, again, this pattern of doing things, I'll find that, I don't even want to smoke weed. I have so many other things to do. Like, weed will make me feel tired, and I'll lose motivation. And I think about that, and I'm like, I don't even want to do that. Like, I'd rather, like, be active and, like, make these videos and do all that stuff, and suddenly I don't even want to do that. But it's not that concept of actually, explicitly quitting it. Because I think when you do quit it, then if you have sort of a self-destructive sort of, what's the word I'm looking for here? If you have that sort of characteristic to you, which I kind of do, when you say you quit, then there's always, like, whenever you want to sort of punish yourself, you can kind of do it by, oh yeah, you quit smoking weed, I know how to fix you, and you'll smoke weed. Like, it's your own, like, self sort of masochistic, like, weird way of punishing yourself. So you just don't quit. You just find things to replace it. Anyway, I'm sure I had like a bazillion other things to talk about. I was, like I said, I was super excited. You can probably tell I was talking through this super fast. I had things written down. I think I got through most of them. Actually, I got through all of them. But I just wanted to quickly just sort of share some techniques because, man, being depressed sucks, and like I don't have any solutions for like the super long term, but like right now I'm way happy. I'm like in a good spot, and I don't take any, like, I'm not on any medication. I take nothing. Like, I'm an American. I don't have a job, so therefore I don't have health care. So, but that's not the reason. Like, I literally, I take nothing. Like, even for working out, I don't take any supplements. That's just my belief. I try not to put much in my body that I don't understand. If I can't explain it, I try not to take it or drink it or eat it. So yeah. So I'm not like, you might hear this and go, "Oh, he's on Prozac. No wonder he's so happy." I'm not. Like, these are everything I've told you are. That's it. There's no like. There's nothing I'm hiding from you right now. The techniques that I use to get to a good spot are exactly the ones I just shared. Nothing more, nothing less. But I did want to share them because I don't know if they're just specific to me, and if they are, well, thanks for watching. But hopefully they are effective for other people, because man, it sucks to see. It sucks personally. It sucks to be in those spots, and then like, to just know other people are suffering, especially people like, when you think about you only have one life to live, and I see someone whose life is in a bad spot, I just become really heartbroken for them, because you kind of think like, if you're in a bad spot, you're like, oh, I'll overcome this at some point, and then like, I'll have plenty of time left, but we don't know that. Like, we don't know how much time we have left. We don't know anything. So like, if you're in a bad spot, I hope you can get over as quickly as possible, because nothing's promised. And I don't know. And maybe along with a whole bunch of better advice from more qualified people than me, but maybe along with that, you can incorporate some of the things I said today, and it'll bring you to a better spot. And if I've helped anyone, like one person, then hey, this was worth it. I mean, all I had to do is go on camera and talk, look kind of goofy, and get laughed at by my friends. Hey, I'll take that shame for helping even one person. So. And I know that sounds cliche, but I swear that's true. And again, and that's the other thing. And I guess this is how I'll end it. That's another thing that I found. Is again, it sounds corny, it sounds cheesy, but one of the things that helps me get out of my lulls is by helping other people. So if I feel like something I've done is beneficial to others, again, productivity. If my productivity, my being a good person, someone sees that as an example, and it helps them in their life, that fulfillment that it gives me makes me want to do it more. So it does seem cliche or corny or whatever, but it's honestly, I swear to you, it's true that if this does help one person, then man, that's like, it's worth doing. So anyway, I'll leave you with that. So again, I'll put this video up on the website. That's maxresistanceblog.com. maxresistanceblog.com. I'll have the address also in the info down below the YouTube video. I am looking for a job. I redid my website, my resume site. If you want to check that out, if you are looking to hire a developer, that'd be cool. It's bogoodsky.com. I'll put that in the info too. BOGOODSKI.com. And I think that does it for today. I thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, and I will talk to you later. Thank you. Bye.